Describe your educational experiences.
My educational experiences growing up were very varied. My father was in the Navy, and so we moved a lot before we settled in Texas, before we settled in Corpus Christi. My mom would always struggle with where would I go to school everywhere we moved. One time, I know I was in Delaware for 2 years. I went full-time at DSD, Delaware School for the Deaf. And I don't really remember much from that time. I've seen pictures, and my mother said I really liked it. I was very social. I was very involved. I wore 2 hearing aids, but it was very social and was very interactive with friends and as teachers. And then we moved to Virginia. My mother was still unsure about where to send me to school. And they had one school that had both a hearing program and a deaf education program. My mom thought I could be mainstreamed with other deaf kids. So I think that was maybe in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. I was curious about being in a hearing school. My mom says I did fine. I don't remember a lot about that. I remember having interpreters. I was like, who is this person that would come and sit in front of me? And none of the other kids had interpreters. Sometimes it made me feel a little angry, or why did I have someone just looking over me? And looking back now, I realize why and who that was. That was an interpreter. But then when we moved to Texas, after that time, my dad decided to leave the Navy, and my mom really wanted to move to Texas, the big state of Texas, and thought that was great. But trying to decide which city to move to, they looked at which schools would be good for me. At first, they thought that Austin would be the best place to go. They had Texas School for the Deaf. There were some mainstream programs. So they came to Austin and looked around, but my mom wasn't real sure about me being a full-time student at TSD, staying on campus through the week and over the weekends. My mom wanted me to have family life also, both school and family life. And so they reconsidered where to move. They looked at the Corpus Christi program. They had a deaf program and a hearing program that maybe was similar to the school in Virginia. So we moved to Corpus Christi and moved forward with placing me in the deaf school. Well, it was a deaf program within a hearing school. And at first, looking back, it was very awkward. It seemed like the staff didn't know a lot about deafness. There wasn't a lot of signing going on. I remember in this school at Virginia, the deaf and hearing kids played together, but here at Texas, it seemed more separated. The hearing were over here and the deaf were over here, and it seemed different for me. And my mom didn't really like the education that was going on, didn't think it was very good. But in the meantime, my dad had fallen in love with Corpus Christi and didn't want to move. So my mom did decide to homeschool me for a couple of years. I believe it was 1 or 2 years. And I remember a little bit about not liking that, and why couldn't I go to school and be around friends? And Mom said that school was more important than friends. And Mom, insisted that, instead of being at home and playing, I was supposed to be at school, and she was very strict with me. I passed and made good grades and advanced. And then after that time, I went to a private school from 3rd grade till 8th grade. And about 4th grade, I started struggling with social skills issues. I guess because I was homeschooled and then having the deafness, wearing hearing aids, I wasn't getting 100% of the conversation, maybe only 60%, and I was missing a lot. And I think socially I was immature. And academically, I was on grade level, reading and writing and math. I was okay, made good grades, but I was awkward socially, very isolated. I think other kids saw me as different, and I seemed to not fit, seemed out of place. So my mom decided that I would repeat 4th grade. So it was a very easy year for me academically, the same projects, same studies. I made straight A's, but actually that year I did grow in my maturity and social skills improved. Before that second year of 4th grade, I didn't have a lot of friends, but that second time around in 4th grade, I did make some real friends, and I seemed to fit more socially. So looking back, sometimes I wish I wouldn't have repeated 4th grade, but I realize at the same time now that it was a good thing, because some of those people that I met that year are still good friends of mine. and have been as time has passed. So then I continued in the private school and struggled a lot socially. Academically, I did well, made A's and B's, but did well. I hated math. That's not my favorite subject. But English, I was much more interested in and did well. But socially, I felt like I was falling behind. I was struggling to know what was going on. I think I didn't respond appropriately in a lot of ways. I didn't understand. It wasn't that I was immature or ignorant. It's just I didn't understand. I maybe didn't know what to do in that situation, or people would look at me and think, I was just different or weird, and they didn't understand me. We just didn't understand each other. So it wasn't a really pretty situation for me. 7th and 8th grade, that's when you're really first starting to grow up, coming into the teen years and the cliques, and I never really fit in. It was a struggle for me. I actually became sick and had some eating disorders and depression, and high school really wasn't pretty for me either. I was a cheerleader, played soccer, I had straight A's, I was good in academics still, but I think high school wasn't the experience that I thought it would be, having fun and being with friends. And I think that as I grew older, my senior year is when I really understood the maturity issue. Before that, I was trying to fit in, trying to join with other groups, and didn't really have a lot of friends. I maybe had a few friends that tried to understand me and accept me, but they didn't really 100% understand, and they needed to be with their own friends, and I didn't really always want to struggle with meeting people. But finally, my senior year, I had a group of friends that really accepted me, and they didn't care if I was deaf or hearing, just come on and join in with them. At that time, looking back, I think that was my point of really understanding, the socialization situation I was in, and I understood more. And then through college, I went to Texas A&M University in College Station, and I was an Aggie for 4 years. And I loved it, but it was hard. They were all hearing, and me, one deaf person, the same situation that I'd been in. There were several other deaf people at A&M, but the deaf people didn't really hang out together and socialize a lot. Maybe there were a couple of deaf people that I hung around with a little bit, but the others were very isolated. They didn't go to Gallaudet or RIT. Their families wanted them nearby. So I didn't really socialize much with those deaf students, but I did find other friends and hung out with them, made friends with roommates, and went through my college years. I also chose not to go to Gallaudet or RIT. I really loved my family and wanted to be close to them, and it was a nice advantage for me to stay in Texas. But I did also grow up in the hearing world pretty much, and hearing culture, and I always went to a deaf culture situation. Like, for example, in the summers, I went to Texas School for the Deaf summer camp. That really wasn't always that fun for me because, going through teen years, I was a little immature still, and the students that were already at TSD all knew each other, and here I was just joining in during the summertime and not really in the clique, and I would meet a few people, but I never really felt a part of that group. So I felt like maybe a better fit for me would be to go to a hearing university. I was used to that. I was used to using interpreters. I was accustomed to what to do in that situation, ARDs and IEPs and so forth. So I was really satisfied with A&M. I really liked it. It was hard, but I had support from my family. They only lived 4 hours away, but I still felt like it was something I could do on my own. And the roommate situation was hard. Sometimes some of them didn't understand, like a deaf person and deaf culture, and they didn't really understand. I would try to explain, it's a little different for deaf people, and it's hard for me to stay right up with the conversation and to know what's being said. And some roommates didn't really like it and wouldn't continue being my roommate, but others did, and I became their friends and went through several years with them. So I wound up with a group of friends that I socialized with. I still have friends in Austin, Houston, and Dallas. I have a friend, for example, in Houston that invites me to come spend time there, and I really like that. And they look at me not as just a deaf person or that's my deaf roommate, but that's my roommate. She's silly, she's stupid, but she's cool. And I've never noticed them differentiating me as a deaf person. So it was really nice to find that kind of a support system.